Hello everybody, I think we're live and I hope you can hear me. The studio is in a state of disarray, as you can see, so hopefully everything works. I might become a bit orange because I can't control the lights anymore with my app because we're on a different network, because I'm leaving, so we changed the network for, my friend here to take over the studio. And so if I turn a bit orange, don't worry about it. Although I did get vaccinated, better said, just 2 days ago with the Janssen one. So I'm now 100% immune, I think, more or less, to the virus. So that's good news. Slowly we're gonna go back to normal, be able to travel. I have my actual European Union thing there that says that I'm actually indeed vaccinated. So that's pretty cool. And let me just size this a bit better so I can see you. Hello, that is Art. Good to see you. Good. I'm good, thanks. How are you? How is everyone? So today we're going to talk a little bit about money, and we'll take it from there. We just have a bit of discussion, and I'm going to give you a seminar on what to do with your money. But what a mess out there. Oh yes, it hasn't gotten any worse that you can see, but the other room is just, it's a disaster. So I don't know quite yet how I'll manage it, but eventually it will turn out okay. So as some of you know, some of you don't, I'm going to be moving to Madrid from Barcelona. I'm staying in Spain actually, but I'm moving to Madrid very soon, actually in about a month. And I will set up a new studio there, which will be pretty cool. And I will kind of guide you through the process. So, putting this stuff away is just not fun for you to see. But as soon as I get there, I'll show you how I'm going to build that next studio, maybe with videos, maybe with lives here and there. I'll go live unannounced. So if you haven't done so, if you're new, please do this here because it helps, or there you go. And what else? Let's see. Well, we're going to look at a new lick today from the book 21 Licks. So make sure you download it below. And one of you very kindly last week, she bought the alternate picking book. Let me just plug it for you just a second. But more important than me plugging the books, which are these two, you can find them down there in the description. But more important than that, she told me that some of the links didn't work. And I've heard this before by a lot of people, but every time I check it with my system and other computers on the network, it does work. So what I did is change all the links from bit.ly to tinyurl. All right. So if you want to try it for me, you can click on the links below and let me know if it works for you, if it works better. Now they're on tinyurl. I think it's the same thing, but it should work and get you straight to the correct page. The 21 Licks book is completely free, so download it down there. And we'll look at a lick shortly. But if in case you're new, we look at one of the licks every week on Saturdays, and then we do a little chat. All right, so that's kind of the thing with our Saturday lives. So hello Jim, good to see you. Hello Alex. Yes, it's a bit messy. Anywhere in Spain would be so cool. Tell me please, are there people that play flamenco guitar much? Oh yes, there are flamenco players on the streets, yes. And more so in Madrid, I think. But if you go down south to Andalusia, you'll see them everywhere. As a matter of fact, it becomes a bit of a topical thing, But you'll be able to see them if you go to Cordoba and Granada or Seville or Sevilla, as they say here. You'll see them, certainly, in plazas, It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. But, as always, there are many players and just a few very good ones. But I hate to be that guy. Does it happen to you? Because you all play, right? So you go somewhere and maybe I'm traveling with my parents, and they go, wow, look at that guitar player, he's so good. And you never know what to say. Like on one hand, you want to be truthful and tell them that he or she is not so great. But on the other hand, you don't want to be the one who, always spoils the fun. So I usually just shut up. I go, I go like that. But yeah, so there's a lot of flamenco players if you go to Andalusia, so maybe you should have a trip. But seriously, it's a beautiful place. Cordoba, Granada, Seville, you should go and check it out. There should be a lot of new opportunities in Madrid. I hope so. Although the first opportunity will just be to settle down. It's a big change. We have so much stuff. I have like 30 fronts open on all sides. But slowly I'm kind of taking care of everything. We've been going on with this for about 6 months now. So the level, there's a latent stress level that's always there. You don't feel it until one day you're like, man, I don't feel so good. And it's all that accumulated stress by all these people trying to, pull at you from different directions. But, everything is all right. But Paco de Lucia is from southern Spain. Yes, he was from Algeciras, which is way down there. And the spelling is correct, so very good. And Vicente Amigo, yes, desafinado. That's good. I guess it would be good to travel southern Spain then. Seville and Andalusia go... Sorry, I've heard quite a lot about as far as flamenco goes. Yes, you should go to Granada, Cordoba. I will go there. And then Seville is really cool. And but everywhere, even where I'm going, Madrid, you have all kinds of nice places around it. There's Toledo, there's Segovia, there's Salamanca. There's so many places. And of course, where I am now, Barcelona, I lived here for many, many, many years. And you can travel to Cadaqués, you can travel to, everywhere. There's so many places that are beautiful here. It kind of reminds me of Italy, which is where I originally come from. And you get on a car, and in 2 hours you are in all these places, from Venice to Ferrara, which is a beautiful Renaissance town. You can be in Turin, in the Alps. Or to the Egyptian Museum, one of the biggest in the world, actually, the second after Cairo, in Turin. So if people don't travel to Turin, but if you go to Turin, you have one of the best Egyptian museums in the world right there. So Italy is kind of like that. When I lived in America, it was a bit longer distances, right? So if I drove 1 hour from Sacramento, I didn't go anywhere. I didn't get very far. Then I could get to San Francisco in about 2 hours. And then a few hours more, you'd be down to LA, Santa Cruz, maybe 3.5 hours from where I was. But, it's, and up north, I could go to Lake Tahoe, I could go to, which is Nevada, of course. But yeah, I enjoy both things. I enjoy both a place where I can just travel pretty short distances and be in a really cool place. But I also really enjoy the vast expanses of America. They were great. I remember just driving for like 6 hours, 7 hours across the desert, and it's beautiful too. So, and I guess Canada is kind of like that, right? Canada is like a lot of nothing and then a town or a city. But those have, they're pretty cool. Indrajit, what's up? Good to see you, Indrajit. And all right, so I'm going to show you the lick, yeah, and then we're going to talk about money a little bit, and I'll warn you beforehand. But let me show you this little lick. You know the song In Dreams, I think. For those of you who are new, the 21 Licks book is a book that I released. It's free, 100%. It's a PDF, and it has little licks and riffs from my songs, and you can check them out and use them to learn technique and composition and all that. You don't even have to like my music. As a matter of fact, I hope that you like it, but I don't care. If you get the book and you study it, you'll be fine. You'll learn a lot of interesting things for your own music. So this is the idea behind this little lick, and it seems quite unassuming. I'm gonna play it for you if I can remember it. This is the little lick that starts the song, and it's the basis for the the whole verse section. And the intro, there's a little intro that goes like this. Before we get to the verse. Right, like that. And as you may have noticed, I'm going to remove the tab, all right, so make sure you get the PDF. It's down here in the description, and you can follow along. But the idea behind this little thing is that I've often asked about this song what kind of exotic scale I use, and what are those chords. And it's surprising to me, and it really opened my eyes to the fact that the phrasing that you use is so important to the actual perception of the music. And again, if you're new, this is what I do. I show you the lick, and then we use that lick to give a few pointers for composition. So the idea here is that a lot of times when you write music, we're all kind of writing the same thing, right? We're using the same scales, we're using the same chords. We can be more or less creative with it. We're also limited somehow by the style of music we play. So if I play rock music, such as my case, I can be creative with it. I can kind of steer the boat towards a bit more funk, towards a bit more blues, and maybe a bit more experimental, but I'm still kind of, in that realm. And so some of the things that are possible in music just simply don't fit, right? I can go on an exotic chord spree on a rock song. It just sounds out of place. And so phrasing becomes very important to kind of imply certain elements of interest. So this thing you hear is really some very, very, very basic chords. As a matter of fact, if I were to play like this, you would probably have a laugh at me. This is embarrassing. But this is really the song. This is the song. C sharp minor, G sharp minor, B, and F sharp minor. But the way you play it, sorry. Just the rhythmic part of it, and you know, just the contour of the melody, in this case of the chords, really makes a big difference. And so when you have that sounds strong, then you can put pretty much anything on top of it. And the melody is also basically a minor scale, even a pentatonic minor scale, but it sounds more exotic than it is. And the reason is that you're always playing with the rhythm. So it's that simple. Today I don't have a lot to talk about because it's such a simple lick. But if you have questions, of course, I'll be happy to answer. Let me show you one thing I promised you. Well, no, I did. I promised you some pictures from my studio before I built it, but I couldn't find them. But here's what I did, because I didn't want to dismantle the studio before I at least took a little, you know, I could document it. So here's a little panoramic that I did of my studio. And it's already not like this anymore. So it's already worse than in the pictures, but now at least I have a memory at least of how it was. Right? So it's almost perfect. The panel, there's a little bit of a overlap there, but see, so this I will take with me and remember my studio. But the exciting part is that I get to build a new one. So the sad part is that just a year ago I said, okay, this is it, I'm done. I finished the studio, you know, after years and years and years of dreaming of having my own studio. I'm done, and now I have to move. So I'll keep you posted as far as the new one goes, but there's gonna be a lot of work to be done. So let's start with the topic of today's video, which is money, basically. I thought I would talk about money for musicians, but first of all, I think we should just talk about just a few things that I picked up through the years about simply interesting and smart decisions you can make about money. Because with musicians, I often find, and you don't have to be a professional musician, if you just are of the kind of the artistic inclination, you are kind of victim to that fact that you're more interested in these things than in your bank account. And that's something completely normal, and actually it's probably positive. It's probably a good thing. But we do live in a world where we kind of have to be aware of that other side, right, of the business side. And so even if you're not a musician, even if you don't want to be a professional musician, but you have the bug, you have the creative bug, maybe you like playing instruments, maybe you're an artist and you like drawing and painting, and you just have a hard time relating to the whole numbers and the spreadsheets approach to life, right? And I totally understand you. But I thought that it would be, and because people have asked sometimes, I thought it would be an interesting topic for a brief discussion. And then maybe another time we can get into the specifics of the actual musician's life, because then we can get into the copyright thing, we can get into ways of generating an income, you know, how much you charge for your services, but that's very specific. So on a broader subject, and mainly what I was asked a few times, and feel free to, you know, interrupt in the chat. As a matter of fact, keep the chat going. And you don't have to agree with me on any of this. Circumstances are 100% different for all of us. But I've never seen anybody who, you know, who really broke these rules that I'm going to give you, or these guidelines, that really had a good outcome. And I've seen a lot of the opposite. I've seen a lot of people who just couldn't relate to the real world. You know, musicians, even of quite successful ones, they just couldn't relate. You know, when they got off stage, they had no idea how to handle anything. And I was lucky enough, as I sometimes said, to become friends, and as a matter of fact, to have such kind of as mentors, people who were very successful in music, but were also very smart. And they were quick to warn me about some of the pitfalls. And I've talked about it before, you know, but one of them who was very specific with it, very smart about it, was Ronnie James Dio. I had the great luck of befriending him And one day he sat me down and he said, well, there's a few things you should know, blah, 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 and he gave me a few pointers. But overall, I've seen it many, many times with a lot of people. So I'm just gonna tell you what worked for me, and this is in no way a class on money and finance, all right? So here's what I gathered through the years. First of all is that people who could do this for a long time learned very early on to live on less than they made. So basically they live below their means, and certainly never above their means, which means if you make this much money, then you should spend less than what you're making. Not what you're making, and certainly not more than you're making. And this sounds elementary, but depending where you're from in the world, this is not something that's common. Some countries in the world are based on the philosophy of credit card debt, student loans. And I lived in America many, many years, and this is kind of axiomatic in America. A lot of people finish school with already like tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt. All right, so that's the first thing that I learned, that I saw people who were like, okay, if I make this amount of money, and in music sometimes it goes in waves. Music is not really like a regular job, like you get paid this much every month. Even if you structure it properly, you're still victim of rise and fall, and you eventually at some point in your life you'll get an income that is quite significant. And I learned very early on to never trust that that income will be sustained in time. So you always spend less than you make. Some people say you should have spreadsheets with a budget plan. If I wanted to do budget plans, I wouldn't do this. So that's not my kind of thing, but still have an idea of what comes in and what goes out. That's the first thing that I suggest everybody does. If you make 1,000, maybe live on, there's different philosophies on it. Some people say always save 10%, always save 20%, but certainly live well below the 1,000. Okay, and this will allow for two things that I think are very important, especially if you want to be in the arts, and it's something that's so crazy like the music world. First of all, it will allow you to get rid of debt. If you have debt of any kind, that's the first thing you should attack. We talked a little bit about it last week, and I'm open to being discredited by the experts on here. And that's the other thing. There's so many people who will tell you what to do with your money, but truly, these things work. Now, is there something else out there that might be a bit better? Maybe, but how risky is it? Do you understand it? So to me, the simple things are really the ones that work. So first of all, live under your means. Second of all, with that money you save, get rid of debt. You have debt of any kind, cars, you bought instruments you shouldn't have, you bought a big TV that you shouldn't have bought, all that kind of stuff. Get rid of it as quickly as possible, because all that money is going to cost you a lot. Even if it's zero interest, it's still taking away your income, which is what you're going to need to build your basic financial structure. All right, so first of all, get rid of debt. Any debt, of course, the one that has the highest interest should go first, I think. And if you have zero interest, still get rid of it before you go do anything else. Get rid of that. Oh, my phone doesn't cost me anything. It still costs you, because every month you don't know how much you got. So this might be a bit or very conservative on my part, but I'm 100% behind the fact that you should not owe money to anyone, except maybe for a house. That's for another time. The other thing you can do with that money that you don't spend because you're living below your means is to build a little nest egg or an emergency fund that you can use in case of emergency. Emergency is not, a new Apple Watch came out and I need it. Emergency is truly a medical emergency, or, something going completely wrong and you have to use that money, which again, you have to build up again as soon as possible. So there's many schools of thought on this. Some people say you should have a nest egg that covers you for about 6 months. So if you spend 1,000 a month, you should have 6,000 in your nest egg that you don't touch at all, ever. Some people say maybe just 1,000 or a couple of thousand will, cover you. I'm partial, if you can, to cover 6 months of expenses, because then if anything happens, and it has happened to me, you don't panic, you can think straight, you can be cold about it and go like, okay, well, I have time to set things straight without incurring into debt or all that kind of stuff. So those are really the three biggest things. And of course, there's some corollaries to it. Like if you want to get rid of debt, what you want to do is don't incur into new debt. And so certainly never buy with a credit card. I always use cash for everything. If not, you don't have to actually go there with the bag full of cash, but I mean money you have. And that served me very, very well. And I've seen a lot of people trying to build studios. They maybe, we'll talk about it later, but you see somebody on YouTube or on Instagram and you think they have all this stuff and that you need it. And I have pretty young students sometimes, maybe in their 20s. I don't take people too young because I don't like them. But even if they're in their 20s, they're kind of starting out. Maybe they got their first job, so they have a little money on their hands, which they're not used to having. And maybe they follow 2 or 3 guys on YouTube or Instagram or whatever it is, and they say, well, they are easily persuaded that they need something like that, or they might think they need something like this, which you certainly don't. And so I have to warn them about the fact that you don't need to get that today. You can certainly make sure you buy it in cash when you can, whatever it is. Oh, but I need a guitar. No, you don't need a guitar. And if you need a guitar, just get a $100 guitar. That's what I got when I first started out, and that's fine. You certainly don't need to get a loan for a PRS as your guitar. You don't need it. You don't need to give lessons. You don't need to play in your band. It's not an investment, all right? It is not. It's not. So that's the other thing. So certainly pay cash. Let's see, another thing that I kind of wrote down a couple of things there. Another thing that it's hard for us musicians, because we are kind of, at least of my generation, we have this kind of idealized idea of what a musician's life is. I had that when I started out. And then I was lucky enough to meet all these people and realize how they actually lived. And the fantasy part of being a musician is a very small part of anybody's life. You can't live, I mean, maybe if you are, I don't know, if you're Bruce Springsteen, then you could live in a bubble, I guess, if you wanted to. But even for successful musicians, but not incredible superstars, you have to eventually get back to the real world. And all the people who were successful that I met and that I could see knew what they were doing. They were all very, very aware of it. And so their life was, okay, well, I'm playing on stage, I'm going in the studio, and this is kind of the life I want. But then there's all kinds of stuff that you're not immune from. You're not immune from bills. You're not immune from health problems or scares. You're not immune from your family needing support and help. You're not immune to anything. You're not immune to any of that. And so sometimes we just have to understand that we need to make more money to support our dream, so to speak. When I started out, I've been a waiter. I worked at a library. I did private lessons at home for $5 for 5,000 liras an hour. That's $3 an hour. What else? I worked at a music store. You kind of do what you have to do, because sometimes to build up a certain structure for your future life, you need some extra money. So if you make only, I don't know, $500 a month, it's going to be hard for you to do any of the above. It's going to be hard for you to live on less than you make. It's going to be hard for you to get rid of debt if you have any. It's going to be hard for you to set up any kind of nest egg. It's going to be difficult because you don't have enough income, right? And then if some of that income is already going somewhere that's not your pocket, such as credit card debt or whatever it is, then, or your 24-month payment plan for an Apple Watch you didn't need, then it's a problem, right? So sometimes you just have to swallow it and or bite the bullet and go out and get a job. Go work as a waiter, go work at a clothing store, go work at an Apple store if you're into that. It doesn't matter, but as long as you know it's a step in the right direction, then it works. And that's something I find a lot of people have a hard time with, because they go like, no, I'm a musician, I don't want to do that, I don't want to work at a restaurant. But guess what? Real life is like that. And if you live too long on that fantasy that people will just pay to see you and will pay for everything you do and you don't need to do anything, at some point it's going to bite you in the ass. And if it's when you're 20, that's fine. If it's when you're 45 or 50, then it's a bit sad, right? Because you're gonna look back and now it's, you're up to here in responsibilities. So that's another thing. So make more money if you can. If you feel you need more money, don't get into debt. Don't get into your credit cards. Just get an extra job, a few hours a day, and you'll be able to do whatever you want. You need a guitar, just a few months of work with a second job at night, maybe, especially if you're young, you can do it. You can get off school or get off your job and go somewhere for 2 or 3 hours a night. And then when you're done, you pay for your guitar, cash, and you can leave the job if you want. That's what I would do. That's what I've done. And it gives you peace of mind that's beyond explanation. Let's see. I don't know what else. I have a couple of things here, but one thing that I would suggest especially for musicians, you don't have to look rich. You don't have to look like you have a lot of money. You don't need to have, especially not for somebody on Instagram to see you and give you a like, or on YouTube to be impressed. And I didn't even know this was a problem until I saw it in a few students who are young. And there seems to be this new culture where you actually believe what you see on Instagram. You see somebody on Instagram sitting by the pool. It's not their pool. I mean, it might be, but it's not. They're probably renting some place to impress people. And there seems to be this whole ecosystem of money coming in and out, just of appearances. And with music, it's so sad because you are kind of forfeiting your life, your future life of being able to make music forever, to impress some people on Instagram or YouTube. You don't even know them. Who gives a shit what they think, right? Get a crap guitar and a crap amp and a little laptop, and you can make incredible music. You don't need anything else. You don't need anyone's approval. You don't need anyone's little heart on Instagram. You just need to make your great music and have a successful financial situation. So that's what I would, for the young people, don't worry about what you look like. Don't worry about what clothes you wear. Don't worry about what guitar you have. It doesn't matter. Nobody gives a shit. The only people who give a shit are people who are in the same game as you. And it will just create a lot of problems for everyone. So I hate to be up here preaching, but that's something, because I've seen it with young people and their parents. Sometimes they would come here and go like, could you tell my kid, that he doesn't need this and that. He keeps asking for more things. And families who are not necessarily well off, it's a struggle for some families to pay for their kids' lessons. It's not like we're expensive. I think we're very fairly priced, but still, I know that it's an expense and it's a sacrifice, and so it doesn't mean anything. All right. So imagine all the great records that were made in somebody's basement. Imagine what Van Halen did in his studio. Imagine what Prince did with a drum machine and a microphone. So don't believe any of that crap. None of it. You don't need any of that. And especially if you're young and impressionable, don't be impressed by people on YouTube. Don't trust them. Don't trust me. Don't trust anyone on YouTube, Instagram, or whatever it is. They're not there for you. They're there for them. And that's true. And so you should just find your own direction and trust in that. Although you can trust me with regards to money. I mean, even if you don't trust me, it doesn't matter. Whatever I'm talking about today about money, if you sit down and you think about it, there is no way you can think of something else that's better. Right? Because it's common sense. It's common sense. And one more thing is that I see in musicians sometimes, we are so, we're so deep into our dreams that we are kind of gullible to things that we shouldn't be. And one thing that we're gullible to is, well, there's two things. One that has nothing to do with money, but one is that people will do the work for you. That one day you'll meet somebody from a label or a manager who's really going to help you out and is going to do it for you. That doesn't exist. Nobody's going to do shit for you, ever. Nobody. I will help out a friend. I will help out somebody who needs it, but don't expect it from anyone. Don't expect anyone to do anything for you. You have to do the work. So that's one thing I see a lot of people fall into, and they go, oh, no, okay, but he will take care of it. The producer will take care of it. And it never works, or rarely. So nothing to do with money. But the other thing is that we're open to being gullible to investment opportunities. I had students and fellow musicians, sometimes band members, who got into all kinds of stuff, like investing in gold. I'm not making this up, all right? investing in a gold mine in Peru. I know, I couldn't make it up if I could. In Bitcoin, of course. Bitcoin has been a big thing, and I know some of you will say, well, but some people made a lot of money. Okay, well, I don't understand this. So my advice here is that invest in things you understand. The financial world is complex, but you don't have to know everything about everything. You can just become a little bit savvy about a few things. And in my case, I've had an interest in real estate. I'm not a guru or anything, I've made my mistakes, but I've enjoyed that part, and it's given me a little something to continue on my journey here. And but don't fall for all those things. And who goes to all these seminars about becoming rich? Not people who are rich, and not people who will become rich. All the people who go there are the people who give money to people who make more seminars about being rich and become richer every day they make a seminar. So, and then when you are done and you pay 3,000 or whatever it is for a weekend, and you have to take the bus home and the train for 4 hours, they get on their helicopter that you paid for and they go back to their mansion, or maybe they'll spend the weekend at the beach. So that's another thing, and I've seen it quite a bit. People are kind of desperate to find a solution to the fact that music doesn't really give a lot of money, especially nowadays. So the answer is not get rich quick schemes. I've never seen it work for anyone. One student once bought some bitcoins and made maybe 1,000, which was a big thing, but then it's not going to change your life, is it? So that would bring you back to point 4 or 5, which was maybe get an extra job for a little while. Try to increase your income, and then you'll be able to manage things. But that's basically my philosophy, which is very simple. It's very simple, and you can kind of summarize it in stay out of debt and have a little nest egg or emergency fund, and that's pretty much it. And if you make this amount of money, live on this. Now, if you can live on this when you're young, especially, I would do it. When I was young, I wouldn't spend anything on anything. I remember going back from work at the restaurant, and I had this little it was in my what do you call it? My thing where you hang your clothes in. Come on, I have a bit of a brain freeze here. I think it's the vaccine, and I had all my money there, my little cash thing, and never touched it for anything. I wouldn't, and you don't want to do it when you are a family man, or when you have people who depend on you, or maybe when you're just living in a more socially normal situation. But when you're young and crazy, in a wardrobe, that's right, Jim, and I had all my cash up there and never touched it. And you would go out, well, I'm gonna take one bill, maybe 2. And if you're at that age, you can do it. If you're 18 or 17 or 20, you can go out after studying, or your university or your college or whatever you're studying. You can go out there at night and get an extra job, and you're not gonna die from it. I can tell you that. And in a few years, maybe you'll be in a position where everybody will be laughing at you now that maybe they're going out, they're partying, they're drinking, and they're getting wasted and spending all their money, and you're not. But maybe in 5 years, then you'll be on your way to basically living your dream, which is maybe to make music, maybe something else. And anyway, that's my bit of advice. But maybe it's better if this is a conversation rather than me just preaching. And again, this has no value at all other than my experience, and more than that, everything I've seen from people who can range from total financial failures to total financial success. And I've never seen these two things cross. I've never seen anybody live completely unaware of their finances and in the long term end up somewhere pleasant. All right, so we were just talking about a closet just now for a cat. Well, your cat certainly needs it. New home for the cat. What do you mean, the cat, speaking of expenses, oh yes, the cat can be expensive, but yes, it's worth it. It's worth it. And these things, these discussions of money When you get too specific, people will have all kinds of different needs and circumstances. But the basis, the basics, I think they're so clear. Like, it's so simple. And but please let me know what you think. And another thing to keep in mind is that if we want to talk about musicians' problems, then it's a different thing. I didn't want to get into it because it might not be of interest to anybody who doesn't really want to be a musician for life. But there's how to treat your income. Like music is such an uneven thing. Because sometimes you get a lot of money, and sometimes you get no money for a long time. I think doing what you love is quite important. Oh yes, that's the most important thing. But beyond that, because we can all agree, right? You do what you love. That's the main thing. Have a life you enjoy, and if you're happy with it, then you're fine. But eventually, people will reach a point where they do need some financial thought. Although I realize sometimes at least some sacrifices have to be made. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. The thing is, to me, the biggest sacrifice would be to not be able to play. And for some people would be to have a job they like, to have a job they hate. That would be the biggest sacrifice. It's more of a sacrifice. I think, to have a job you don't like, to be forced to keep a job you don't like. It's much more of a sacrifice than not buying a new guitar. Not buying a new guitar doesn't mean anything. As long as you go home, you have a good family. I mean, not a family life like normal life, but as long as you have a happy household, and you're healthy, and you're not, because money stresses people out. That's the thing. If not, we wouldn't be talking about it. But money problems do, as some of you know, I'm a psychologist, but I don't want to sit here and talk to you as a psychologist. But it is true that a lot of people have like suicides, and without going too far, drinking problems, family problems, couples that break up, children that are left with one parent only or whatever. A lot of time it spawns from financial troubles, financial problems. People have, they're preoccupied by their financial situation, they start drinking, and that's true. That's 100% true. It's one of the big detonators for unhealthy behavior. Money problems and work problems, which is kind of related. So I think it's important. I think it should be taught, to children actually. Indrajit, you get sudden urge to buy gear. Well, we all do. That's fine, Indrajit. I think. Right, I think everybody here has the same problem. But it depends on priorities, right? If you say my first priority is that I have to take care of myself long term. So long term, it's better to keep doing what you love than getting another piece of gear, I think. Those things should be taught at school, right? It's a shame there is no focus on that important topic. At least here in Spain, I think financial basics are not taught. They're not at all. You know what I do? And I have a kid, right? He's 10 years old, and I take him with me everywhere. Go to the bank, go to buy a car if I have to. Wherever I'm negotiating anything, just lowering €2 a month my insurance. I don't care. I take him with me, and I'm no expert, I'm no guru, but sit there and learn. You don't have to say yes to people. You don't have to accept that you don't know what you're talking about. You go to talk to somebody about an insurance, you don't have to know about the insurance. You don't have to feel inferior because you don't know about the insurance. They're there to teach you. They're there to explain it. And if they don't explain, you tell them you're not explaining it to me. If you don't understand it, you don't feel guilty about not understanding it. It's not your job, is it? Your job, you're a 10-year-old kid. Your job is to have fun in school and get good grades. It's not to be an expert on buying cars. So you ask them, and if their answers don't satisfy you, you ask them again. And if you feel you can trust them, you walk out. And then you'll see they call you back and they'll be more receptive. And I try to do it with my kid actually, and must be a bad parent too, because who drags their 10-year-old to a business meeting? But the more the sacrifice, the less the job brings satisfaction. Yes, I don't like my job, but don't plan to stay here. It's stepping stone. That's right, Jim. Exactly. That's exactly what I felt when I worked. I hate to say it, but the music store I worked at, it just wasn't for me. And I didn't worry about it. I didn't care. I knew it was a temporary thing, but you know what? When you see somebody maybe in their 50s working there, hating every second of it, you say, okay, well, what choices can I make so that I don't have to do this later? And sometimes you have to do it. Sometimes you have to have a job you don't like. I do all kinds of stuff I don't like. Well, tough luck. You're healthy. You're in good shape. You're alive every day above ground. It could be worse. And it could be worse when you go to the doctor and you think something's wrong. And then you walk out of there and you're like, I'm fine. I can't believe I'm fine. Like you're born again. Everything else doesn't matter. You go to the doctor. They say, well, we should look at this. You start thinking all those crazy things, and everything else kind of ceases to matter. Even your job doesn't matter anymore when you think, health is a risk. So of course, being alive and being healthy, that's the number one. So the more art I can do, the better. Of course, that is art. Because you're a painter, right? That is art. You do art. Alex, what's up, Alex? It's so liberating to know that in my chosen genre, death metal, almost nobody makes a full-time income. Yes. Oh, yes. That's the thing, right? I think you should invest as soon as you can, but only in things you understand. But yeah, but not just the very successful people. Most people can actually keep doing, for example, death metal because they've been smart with their money. There should be a class in school totally dedicated to learning what is out there in the world. Yes, might be considered a negative, but the way I look at it, you get to live two lives. That's right. At work and then at home. I see. I never knew that art was one of them. I grew up around mechanics and whatever they taught in school. I always thought that art was something people do as a hobby. Same for me. When I was a kid, nobody would do in my family my parents are great. My parents are very supportive. We have a great relationship, but they couldn't quite, it's not that they didn't want it. It's just that they couldn't equate guitar and music with a career. It just wasn't in their mindset. And when I decided that this is what I was going to do, I was thankful that they always taught me that whatever it is you want to do, you have to be responsible for what you do. So I think you can be an artist, but if you need maybe to have a job during the day, then you do it. And if you need to study, as I studied, you do it, and you sleep quicker, right? Instead of sleeping 8 hours, you can sleep 6. Nothing will happen. Yeah, you learn that art can be a career only much later. Well, because also I think the internet has changed things a lot. The problem is I have students in their 20s maybe or 19. They say, well, I'm going to be a YouTuber. And being a YouTuber is kind of like, you might as well play the lottery, or, it's like any other job, right? It could happen, but it's not a career choice. Putting your life into the hands of everybody has to love you, and you have to be doing things because people, request them. I don't know. It's nothing is kind of as good as it seems from the outside, I guess. You watched the Rush movie? There is a life lesson in it. We've seen that before. Well, I haven't seen that documentary. But, I think it's very basic. I think people should learn it when they're kids. And this thing that we don't talk about money. The thing is, my problem is that I've seen a lot of people making poor decisions. That's the main thing. I couldn't keep myself isolated from it because I was seeing these people making all kinds of wrong decisions. And I thought, it's not that hard. I'm getting started doing mix downs on recording as a sideline. All right, that's great. yeah, you see that's a smart thing to do, right? You have a job, you might not love it, but you have a job, you keep the job, and then in the meantime, you grow your other interests. And then you'll reach a point where you can maybe monetize that interest. So, cool. Alex basically said what you said about parents, grandparents, hardworking in the way to succeed is the way to succeed, which is very true. Yeah, well, I agree with Alex Lifeson. Yeah, it's really not a mystery, and we all know somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody who bought €1,000 of a strange spice from another planet, and now it's worth millions. But for the rest of us, it's such a simple thing. It's such a simple thing. And the thing is, as I said earlier, I think musicians or people who want to be musicians or artists or actors or whatever it is, we kind of fall for that thing. Like we want to believe that things will happen a certain way. And I think the sooner you realize that you're not special, right? You still owe life what everybody owes life. You owe work, you owe dedication, you owe doing your job better than anybody else, or at least better than you think you could do it. And you still have to do it. Doesn't matter how talented you think you are. Yeah. Or maybe you feel the same, Alex. Yes, Alex, you've been quiet in the chat room. Let us know. Well, Alex, I'm sure you know a lot of people in the music world as well. And, I think a lot of you have seen what I've seen, right? What I was talking about, where the dream takes precedence over rational thinking. And I think it's just not a pretty sight. And if you're young, it doesn't matter, maybe. But I've seen it happen to people with families, people who, divorces. Holy shit, like this, everybody gets divorced. When in the music, it's all about money, And it's such a stupid thing to go to bed and think about money, have to think about money and worry about it, and wake up in the morning and worry about it. Because we all go through it, but if you can avoid it, it's not that hard to avoid it. Unless you are hit with really bad luck, then I'm totally sympathizing with it, and you can help people, right? If you can manage your life a bit better, then you'll be able to help people. Maybe somebody needs a little something, and you can give it to them, which I think is also very important. Because we also shouldn't take a lot of credit for when things go right. That's another thing I learned. I had things go very well sometimes, and I felt bad about it because I didn't think I really deserved it. So when things went really bad, sometimes I thought, wow, I really, I was sure that I put so much work, I put so much effort, I put so much good faith in some projects that bombed 100% completely. So I can understand people who just things keep going wrong for them with no fault of their own. And then sometimes those of us who are in a luckier place at that moment, then we can step in and help them out if we've managed our financials a bit better. The way I saw it is, if I have to participate in the real world for 8 hours a day, let's do something I like just as much as music. So doing a PhD in molecular biology right now and writing album. Wow, Alex, that's impressive. See, that's exactly what I mean, right? And people will tell you, well, you need to give 100% to your music, and if you waste 8 hours a day on your molecular biology, blah, blah, blah. We're not in 1975 anymore. How are you going to make money with music today, right? Isn't it better to know you're making money with a good job you like, and at the same time you'll be able to afford making music? And who knows, you can still try to make music your primary thing. Wow, that's interesting, Alex. Impressive too. Because let me tell you, a PhD in molecular biology is no walk in the park. That I know. Right? Alex, where are you from? I think many musicians that make it usually share their knowledge with students and writers and other musicians, right? Well, that's what I think. I'm sharing everything, or almost. I'm sharing what I share because I was treated the same way by people who I respected. And I always thought that if you get something, you should give something in return. And a few people who I looked up to in music were always very generous with me as far as information and guidance, if you want. And then I've been doing this for a long time. I played my first paying gig when I was 15 or 16. So it's a long time. And even if you're dumb as I am, you do learn things. And so I share them. And this is a format. I always share them with my students and my friends, if somebody asks. But this format here, which is YouTube, which is kind of new to me actually. I'm not very well versed in it. But it's just another way of doing it, right? We're all musicians. We all kind of live of the same passion. And so I share it. Yeah, and then of course I'm not shy about, I do charge for everything else I teach, of course. And I try to be honest about it. I try not to charge too much, but it's nothing to do with it. There's a part that is, your work, part that is your music, part that is being generous. And if you can be generous with knowledge, I think it's better than everything else. Trouble with science is a bit like music. It doesn't really pay much. Yeah, in Bulgaria. All right. I have a few friends in Bulgaria. Actually, I have one of my online students is from Bulgaria. And from his window, I'm not sure exactly where he lives. It's a beautiful town, though. I survived evil medical school, but instead of becoming a doctor, I went into science because medicine turned out to be a big no-no. 6 hours per day in the lab, then I come home to my parents' house. Zero shame whatsoever. And start writing. Well, I think you've got it worked out. I think you figured it out. No, really, Alex, I think this will serve you well in the future. And who knows, the other thing is, who knows where this music thing is going to be going to? Or, where are we going to go in 10 years, How are we going to make a living? I remember, I was starting making records, and I never thought I would make any money from records. So I looked at records. It's sad, but I remember Power Fantastic for me was a loss. Before I even made it, I said, okay, I'm going to throw away this much money. And I have to be honest about it. It pays off to not have any big movie running in your head where you're the star of the universe. Hey, Riff Jiff from Missouri. What's up? Good to see you again. So, how's it going over there? Missouri, it's such a beautiful state. It is beautiful. I just drove through once, but I loved it. All America, actually. The United States, geographically, I think it's one of the most incredible places. You can drive from New York to California and see everything. The best desert in the world, the best mountains in the world, the best plains in the world, and big forests. You're taking a break from the studio. All right. Cool. Well, welcome. And I'm kind of breaking my studio. I'm destroying it. But should we look at my studio again when it was good? Because it will make me happy. Let's see. Look at that. Look, and I'm tearing it all down. Man, I just finished it. But it's kind of what you have to do. We're very lucky to live here, I bet. Alex, why does medical tape bother me only on certain parts of my body? Yeah, don't answer. We don't need to know that. We don't need to know what parts of your body medical tape bothers you on. So, Riff Jeff, do you actually work full-time in a studio? Yes, it was a nice studio. Look at it now. And it's only going to get worse. But as I was saying earlier, we're moving to Madrid, and I will set one up in Madrid, actually at the house. So this is actually outside my house. It's a different place. It's at my music school. But the new one will be in the house. So I will actually be able to spend all day and all night in the studio. I shall have to agree with Andrea. Yes, please. You can chat later, right? Alex, and that is art. And you have your own studio. All right, project studio, writing and tracking. Really cool. Is that your main job? We don't want to, I don't want to know your situation, but it's just because we were talking about it just a little while ago. But that's great. That's the other thing, when I started out, nobody had a studio. You did not have a studio at home, like not at all. And so that changed a lot. On one hand, it's great. On the other hand, we all think we need to have everything, like API and Neve. When I was starting out, you go into a studio and they had a Neve preamp, and you would just sit there and look at it for like hours. Like, how can somebody have a Neve preamp? And now you go on Thomann or Sweetwater, and they're like the top selling preamp. Like, everybody's buying these Neve preamps that are like $3,000. And you kind of have to wonder, it's like maybe our needs, or what we think we need, is getting a bit out of hand. Well, that's such a good point, Alex. Yeah. See what Alex is saying. One weird thing, I try not to let anyone know in the music circles that I do something else, because then they think, they start seeing me not as a musician. That is so true. That's the first thing you have to give no shits about. None at all. I don't give a shit. As a matter of fact, now I actually do music full time. But before then, I was always proud that I was a waiter. I was always proud to have my job as a teacher. I was always proud to have my job as, in music stores. And I would do everything. I would just sign people up in the music lab. I didn't even use the music. I was just signing them up as they came in. Pay me nothing. I don't know how many dollars an hour, but it was money I was making. No shame at all in that, Alex. That is no shame at all. Because real musicians, they spend their 8 hours a day working at something they really hate. That's the other thing. I think you're doing the right thing. And you should not be able to care less about what anybody else thinks, especially people who will criticize you while they're sitting in their rehearsal studios or rooms for 12 hours a day, and then what, right? I think you're on the right track. House or apartment? I'm actually in Madrid. We're gonna be at a house, and so the house in the basement, we're still going to do work to have it soundproofed, but it's not that hard because on two sides we only have to worry about the two sides, on this side and that side. So it's probably gonna be good. It's probably gonna be not too bad. And not too expensive, hopefully, to soundproof it. My studio is a bit cramped, but it's also functional. Yeah, you don't need much, really. That's the other thing. This thing is pretty big because it's part of a music school. The business is a music school, and then I have this room here when I do my studio work. And I've had tiny little studios for a long, long time. Up until I got this place, my studio was in my room, in a room in the house, very small. I don't know how big, but can be more than 3 by 2.5 meters. Very small. Did all power fantastic. As a music hobbyist, I'm okay with the size, of course. My studio is in a small garage. Well, Jim, that's a great place to have a studio. Garages are great. Difficult to isolate or soundproof, but it's it's a bit farther out from the house. The thing with studios, I think we will talk about one day, is to properly treat them. To have a proper treatment of the studio is important. And it's not too difficult. There's a few books, actually, you can get. One by Jeff Cooper is interesting. There's one by Gervais. I think I showed it to you once. What's his first name? Rod Gervais? Rob something. And it's a home studio building a home studio or something like that. I read it twice, but I never looked at the cover. I would just and that's a good book. And you can do great things. As a matter of fact, when I get to Madrid, that's going to be in a month, but we're not going to do work in the house until September. So I would probably start really building the studio around September, October, maybe September, hopefully by September. And then I will kind of go through the thing with you guys if you want. And kind of show you how I'm doing the sound treatment and all that, and should be interesting. Cool. So you have any more questions? You can ask me anything. It doesn't have to be about, money. Sounds good. Yeah. As a matter of fact, when I'm at the studio, at the new studio, I'm thinking of setting up a couple of cameras and have them always there. And whenever inspiration strikes, I will just go live randomly. And that's something I've been thinking about. The thing is, what will I do live? I'm not sure I want to be writing music live because then I'll feel observed, but maybe I will. Maybe I will. I don't know. Because I was seeing these streams by, you guys know I like this guy called Deadmau5. He's a EDM guy, but I really like his studio and his music. And he does it. It goes on for because when you work, I sometimes have 8-9 hour sessions in the studio, and he just leaves the camera on and he works for 8 hours live. And I think it's very interesting. I think it's a gift, to be able to see somebody who's as proficient. But most people think you're crazy if you watch that for 8 hours. But seeing how the mind of somebody of that level works, it's very important. Sounds good. Then you can break out some more Schultz. Schultz is sitting right there in that box. Oh, you can't see it. It's right next to the aux box. There's a big box with all the Schultz. Oh, I can't wait to have it all set up, but it's gonna be a pain in the ass. All the cables I did a few years ago, they're all soldered at the exact length, and I'm sure none of those will work in the new studio. I'm sure I will set everything up and it will be like 30 centimeters too short or something like that, and I will have to do the whole thing again and buy a bunch of cable. Hopefully not. You could upload it as YouTube Shorts. You can do much damage. What is that? YouTube Shorts? Oh yeah, those 30 seconds. I'm an idiot. I'm trying to do the YouTube thing, and I haven't really sat down and tried to figure out how to make it work. But I will look into it in Dragit. The shorts though, wouldn't it be like very opposite to what I was thinking? Like maybe do long videos of writing sessions. But yeah, that would be interesting. Oh, by the way, for those who asked about the Patreon thing, let me think about it. I will tell you about the Patreon thing maybe soon, probably after the summer. I need to get all my shit together here with the move, but maybe I have some ideas to do something that would be respectful. Respectful of those who will not be able to do Patreon. So, but still kind of worth it for those who can. And I've been thinking about it, and maybe we'll be able to do it. Yeah. So, but thanks for asking, because it means a lot to me that you are even worrying about it. You feel for me. Yeah. Thanks. I have as a matter of fact, I filled 5 boxes of cables, and eventually they will have to come out of the boxes and measured and see where I can use them. Good thing I'm pretty good with an iron, with a soldering iron, because my God, just imagine one cable is 6 soldering joints. A TRS cable, and then imagine if I have 6 boxes of it. How many hundred soldering jobs is it? All right, so wow, it's 7:35 already here. So I guess these catches you at all kinds of hours, right? Jim, you're in England. There is art in Canada. Indraji, what time is it over there? It must be late at night. What are you doing up? What time is it in Dragit at your place? And Riff Jiff, you're about what, 5 hours behind? No, 7 hours behind us. So it's probably 12:30 over there in Missouri. Maybe 11:30. Not sure. But yeah, Alex, if you're in Bulgaria, it's not too bad for you. Not too late. 12:30. That's right. So, well, thank you very much for being here. I really appreciate you being here, and instead of doing other things on a Saturday, I really appreciate it. Oh, it's 8:34 there, right? It's 1 hour ahead of us. Yeah, so the result is probably around, early afternoon for you. That's so cool. Thank you very much for being here, because it's really fun for me. And I know I said it before, but just the geography of this, like you're all around the world, and you can be as successful or not successful as you want in music, but when you can do this when you can do this, that you're actually meeting people from all over the world, is just as good as when you can travel for music and go and do clinics for concerts, and you get to meet people from around the world. And this is, to me, is kind of the same thing. So it's very, very interesting. I had people from all over the world actually come here, and nothing makes me happier, but this is pretty close. So even though we're not here in person, it's still great to hear your thoughts and to get to meet you. So be here next week. Is there anything you want me to talk about next week, or we'll just we'll just improvise? Yeah, I know this is probably not the smartest thing to do for YouTube, right? We should have very specific topics discussed in a very specific amount of time, and with videos that last a very specific amount of seconds and minutes, but I don't give a shit. So see you next week. We'll improvise a little something, and maybe I will talk about there's a new lick next week. I don't remember exactly which one, but I'll use it to kind of teach you a little something more about guitar. All right, so thank you all for your support. I have been getting your PayPal little things, so it's very much appreciated. Even if you say that it's a small thing, it's a huge thing for me, because it really shows that these things are useful. So thank you very much. I really appreciate it. And thank you very much for being here, because I know you have better things to do on a Saturday. Take care, and I will see you next week. Bye-bye.